The Effects of Peer Modeling on Free Throws by Megan Doherty, Samuel Cruz, David Legaspi, and Stephanie Lowe. Modeling is a form of observational learning where behaviors that are witnessed by an individual lead to a change in that individual's behavior. This is especially true when observers witness other individuals being reinforced for these behaviors. Observational learning has been shown to occur both in typically developing children and children with autism or other mental disability. The target behavior in this study is shots made in basketball, which could be an automatically and naturally occurring reinforcer. Making a shot correctly resulted in the basketball going through the basketball hoop. Research completed by Zimig and Hagen has proposed that children imitate peers and adults to socialize and to learn novel skills. This is further supported by the book Play, Dreams, and Imitation in Childhood, which asserts that children of the same age can act as highly effective peer models when it comes to learning novel skills due to similarity in cognitive level and perspective. Because of these findings, we have chosen to use peers as models rather than using professional basketball players to model behavior. Several studies and experiments have used modeling to teach a variety of behaviors to a variety of people. College students have used modeling to better perform spatial reasoning and dexterity-based tasks. Children naturally imitate others to form social bonds and learn new skills. Studies with autistic children have found that peer modeling with a normally developed peer can help them learn multi-step tasks. Modeling has even been used to teach adults with severe mental disabilities to play games like darts. Of all the behaviors available to model, shooting a basketball was chosen for several reasons. It is a common behavior for children to engage in and enjoy. It is an easily observable behavior. Unlike behaviors like math or reading, basketball requires both knowledge of how to do the skill and physical activity to perform the skill, so it cannot be learned once and performed perfectly every time. Finally, since basketball is a common activity for children play, with skill in the game having social value, this activity has social validity among the population that was used in the study. The type of multiple baseline design we chose to use for this experiment was a non-concurrent probe multiple baseline. The reason for this design was that participants had their baselines collected sequentially rather than all at the same time. A non-concurrent probe design allowed participants to go through the baseline data only long enough to collect stable data which could minimize any threats to the data like frustration or history within the participant. It is easy to compare the results across multiple participants with multiple baseline, and this gives the added benefit of having replication occur within the experiment. In this experiment, 3 10-year-old boys in different physical education classes at South Park Elementary School were recruited and given the opportunity to earn movie theater passes for participation. Participants were chosen because they were observed to have made 0 shots during an entire hour-long PE period. To attain ethical standards, the experiment was approved by the Human Subjects Committee, Office of Sponsored Projects, Administration. The students were given a parental consent form to be completed and signed previous to any interaction with experimenters, excluding the informational meeting. This information was limited to requesting for students' involvement in a basketball study and whether parents valued the skill. Teachers and faculty were also asked for permission to use the school gymnasium to conduct experiments. In the elementary school gymnasium, a rack of 10 regulation-sized basketballs were used. 2 research assistants were present at every session at either side of the backboard to record the number of shots made. Each recorded shots made was on an observation sheet indicating whether or not a shot was successfully made or the absence of the indicated event. A timer was used in order to keep each session's duration at a maximum of 20 minutes. In addition to the children who were being observed, a peer from the same class that could make 10 shots in a row was present to be a peer model. Researchers wanted to evaluate whether or not a peer modeling method would affect the number of shots made. The independent variable was a 2-minute peer modeling event. Researchers chose this approach to observational learning due to the availability of peers in a typical student's natural setting. The dependent variable was number of shots made out of 10 opportunities. A shot was made under the condition that the basketball fell through the basketball hoop from a vertical displacement after having been projected from the participant's hand from free throw line distance. This was recorded every session across 2 observers. Each session was comprised of 10 opportunities for the participant to make a shot. Inter-observer agreement was conducted by having 2 observers present during every trial of all sessions across phases. Point-by-point agreement was calculated with respect to shots made where researchers required. Inter-observer agreement was achieved at 100% agreement. Researchers used a non-concurrent probe multiple baseline across participants' design in order to see the effects of peer modeling on shots made. Phase 1 was a baseline phase. Phase 2 was the intervention phase. Phases changed when stability was reached in the previous stage. We ran a follow-up phase, Phase 3, to evaluate the effects carried into sessions where peer modeling was no longer available. Each participant was tested individually. The second participant's Phase 1 did not start until the first participants started their Phase 2. The third participant's Phase 1 did not start until the second participant started their Phase 2. One day was for baseline and the second was for intervention. The follow-up was recorded at the participant's next PE class, which featured basketball. We were interested to see if the effects would transition to a setting different from the study. We ran participants separately in order to control for extraneous variables to ensure internal validity in this study. In baseline, participant 1 was asked to stand behind the free throw line where 10 basketballs were provided. One observer instructed the participant that he had 10 opportunities per session to make a shot and that each basketball was to be used only once per session. He was also told that there was a 20-minute time maximum for each session. Sessions would end either at the completion of 10 attempts to make a shot or after 20 minutes. 2 observers were asked to record whether or not a shot was made for each of the 10 attempts. After the first session, the participant was given a 5-minute break while observers would compare observations for the session. The second session started after the first break was over. This pattern continued until a minimum of 3 data points with a maximum of 1 point of displacement from each other occurred. Once baseline was collected, the participant was asked to return the next day for intervention sessions. This process was repeated until the second and third participant. During intervention, each participant was asked to watch the peer model make shots for 2 consecutive minutes. Afterwards, the peer would leave the gym until called in again. Participant 1 was then asked to attempt to make the 10 shots under the same conditions as the baseline. The previously described process continued until 3 stable data points were collected. After this, the first participant was handed their movie tickets and thanked for helping. The process repeated with the other 2 participants. Researchers concerned for social validity was pursued and attained through various mediums. A parental consent form was required for participation in order to ensure that both parents were okay with their child's involvement and they were asked if the skill could benefit their child. Additionally, researchers obtained consent from the PE instructor to observe their PE classes. Researchers wanted to make sure all parties involved thought that this was an experiment that could produce a socially relevant outcome. The social validity questionnaire was distributed to participants in order to assess various aspects of social validity. During the baseline phase, all participants had a low rate of responding. None of the participants made more than 2 of 10 shots. Participant 1 had the lowest and least variable rate of responding during this phase, with 0 shots made throughout. Participants 2 and 3 showed more variability in responding, though they still had low rates of shots made. Participant 2 had a maximum of 1 shot made. Participant 3 had 2. During the intervention, all 3 participants showed a significant increase in the target behavior with the introduction of peer modeling. Both participants 1 and 2's shots made increased at a stable rate after the initial session of peer modeling, with more variability in the middle session of this phase. However, their rate of responding increased at a stable rate with no variability towards the end of the phase. Participant 1 ended this phase with 2 consecutive sessions of 10 shots made, while participant 2 ended with 3 consecutive sessions of 9 of 10 shots made. Participant 3's data showed the largest increase in responding with the initiation of this phase, but his rate of responding increased at a stable rate at the end of the phase. The follow-up data indicated that participants 1, 2, and 3 all maintained a high rate of responding in all 3 sessions. Participant 3 had the most stable and highest rate of shots made, maintaining 10 of 10 shots made in all 3 sessions during this phase. Though participants 1 and 2's data show a little more variability across the 3 sessions, their data still indicated a high stable rate of responding, each making 10 of 10 shots made for 2 of the 3 sessions. Results of the social validity questionnaire showed that all 3 participants strongly agreed that it was easier to learn this skill by watching a peer do it rather than an adult, that they enjoyed and were able to learn a new skill through peer modeling, and that this method was more effective than teaching themselves. The question with the lowest agreement across three participants was learning how to shoot a basketball into a hoop is an important skill to learn. In the additional comments section, they rated this question as neither agree nor disagree because although they thought it was an important skill, they understood that not everyone was interested in learning how to play basketball. All 3 participants also indicated in the additional comments section that they would have liked to have spent less time watching their peers in between opportunities to make shots. The results indicated that the intervention was successful since all 3 participants were able to make either 10 out of 10 shots or close to 10 out of 10 shots consistently after intervention and were able to maintain these high rates during a follow-up session. The results of this current study coincide with research mentioned previously. Piaget stated that peers of the same age were believed to be more helpful models than adult models, and the participants agreed with this sentiment in the questionnaire. So a student of the same age and in the same PA class was used to acknowledge these previously found results. Groenendyk, Janssen, Ridge-Larsdam, and Vanderburg also found that participants had higher self-efficacy when they practiced the skill with peer modeling than alone. This supported the fact that they felt they had a greater belief in their ability to perform their skill on their own after the intervention. A potential threat to internal validity was testing, or the process of repeatedly presenting the same task to a participant who engages in a behavior multiple times. This was a threat to internal validity because the behavior of shooting a basketball into a hoop could have naturally improved after several attempts. There was also no control over activities that took place outside of the school environment, so history could have potentially been a threat to internal validity. For example, the participant could have gone home after the baseline day and practiced shooting a basketball into a hoop before the intervention session the next day without telling researchers. Engaging in this behavior could have assisted in the participants learning how to shoot a basketball successfully between the baseline and intervention phases. Construct validity might have been threatened by the lack of description for topography of the behavior, or how the behavior looked. This could be a threat because the participant may have found a way to successfully throw a basketball into the basket that did not match the way the peer had thrown the basketball, and this was not a method learned through modeling. Some additional limitations to this current study included the size of the participant, as being taller, having longer arms, or being physically stronger could make one more physically capable of making a shot than other participants. The immediacy of performance could have also affected results. The participants observed his peer shoot basketballs for 2 minutes before he was able to shoot the basketballs himself. This could have been a limitation since participants had to shoot 10 basketballs before encountering the peer modeling again. One way to counter this limitation would have been to have the peer model make one shot and then allow the participant to shoot one basketball, repeating for 10 basketballs. Several things can be done for future research in peer modeling. Different interventions that result in similar effects should be explored. Future research should also incorporate different populations of participants who can learn from peer modeling, such as students and other grade levels. Children with developmental disabilities and adults who are either typically developing or have developmental disabilities should be explored as well. Chaining or multiple step behaviors could be explored to understand the potential longevity of these effects. Future research can also explore potential effects of language and its role in peer modeling. Language, more specifically descriptive words, could possibly aid students in learning a behavior through peer modeling. Finally, future research should look at the potential effects of peer modeling as it has on workplace behaviors as opposed to leisure behaviors. Peer modeling effects could be able to generalize to different settings if workplace and leisure behaviors were positively affected through modeling peers of approximately the same age while engaging in certain behaviors.